Welcome everyone to the Pleb Underground YouTube show. We break down the weekly Hopium and the Shitcoin Corner. But before we dive into those, we are going to go take a look at the numbers. Let's do it, people.
The numbers, of course, brought to you by Timecodes.com. That's Timecodes.com.
At the time of this recording, the block height is 749,164. The Bitcoin price, 24,205. Total public Lightning capacity, 1,405.81. And the Moscow time is 41:32. Walton, those are the numbers. And you know what? I actually have some stats for us to take a look at. I got some numbers that may be interesting, maybe not. It depends. We think it's interesting.
Phil, do you remember when we got to a point where I think you could get fewer than 2,000 sats for $1, and I almost felt like it wasn't gonna come back. So say that number again. Moscow time was what?
I think it was 41:32.
Guys, get buying.
Right? Get buying.
Right.
It's a stacking country. We're getting so much. Man, for like $100, you get almost like, I think the last time I stacked, I got over 200,000 sats. It was like 230,000 sats. Anyways. Okay. But what we're talking about today for the Hopium, for the numbers, is we're taking a look at a tweet from Corn DeLorean. He's retweeting Kevin Rook. And here we go. 4,500 BTC. Bitcoin users are adding over 10 BTC of public capacity to the Lightning Network every single day. Now, why is that important? It's important because according to all the corporate-owned media outlets, Bitcoin's dead. Bitcoin's dead. It's finished, right? Everybody's waiting on the garbage merge from Ethereum. You know, this is what the corporate-owned media wants to tell you. But at the end of the day, what's really happening? People are putting their liquidity to work on Lightning. That, to me, is incredible signal. And this is what I've always looked at. This is what I looked at in the last bear market. Well, bear markets. I always say this with an eye roll because I don't consider any of these bear markets. It's like, just imagine a person breathing, right? A person has to exhale, right? You have to inhale, you have to exhale. It's the act of breathing. It's the same thing. I see Bitcoin in the same way. It's an organism that is breathing. And right now, it had a massive move up to 69K. And we're breathing. And while we're exhaling, okay, there is a whole bunch of development that's going around. And keep in mind that 4,500 BTC, Walton, 4,500 BTC is only what we see on the public nodes. We have no idea what's happening in the private channels. That would be actually a pretty cool thing to look at. Anyways, what are your thoughts on the Lightning capacity?
I think it's cool. I remember when, like last year when we started PlebNet, it was like, I don't know, end of April, early May, and I think there was about 1,100 Bitcoin on. You can quote me on that. I'm probably slightly wrong, but 1,100 Bitcoin on the Lightning Network. I think as PlebNet grew, like there were a bunch of plebs like putting more and more liquidity on, like and it. I'm pretty sure it doubled in the next 6 months or so. And what you're saying is it's now doubled again in the following year. So it's basically about 1,000 Bitcoin every 6 months getting added on. I think it's really good. I still think like it's very, very early days in terms of I think in terms of what's on there. But as you said, like some of that we don't know how much private liquidity is on there in private channels. But I don't know. I think if the Lightning Network is going to do what we all believe that it can do and will do, we need more adoption. And I think the single biggest factor for this is actually individuals orange pilling the businesses that they use as clients of that business. So you're a customer of that business. Whether that's your rancher, your grocer, whoever you're buying things from, you need to orange pill them, get them running a node, and we can really kind of build a Bitcoin economy on the Lightning Network.
I think that's very well said. And to your point, right, I think that's something that people don't pay attention to as well, right? If we zoom out, what are we seeing? we're seeing this liquidity being added to Lightning now. So what happens once, this is the funny thing. What happens when you start to throw value at something? People want to start to build value around it. And this is exactly what we're going to see. I believe that this liquidity that's being added to Lightning constantly is what's going to incentivize new players to come to the Bitcoin ecosystem, more specifically to Lightning, and start developing around Lightning, because there's this really great liquidity use case. And all it's doing, right? It's not a bunch of yield pools or anything like that. You are providing a service. Okay, you're helping people fulfill transactions on the Lightning Network, and as a result, you get compensated for it. So if you ask me, this is fantastic.
It's like you're cutting out the credit card companies that are taking a stake for not really doing all that much, like or not doing that much anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like the cost of the technology is nowhere near the amount of money that Visa and MasterCard and American Express, etc., are all taking. And this is why, again, it's down to merchant adoption, because they're the ones that stand the most to gain. I think in the UK, certainly a couple of years ago, they made it illegal for companies to add a surcharge for card processing fees, even though the cut, businesses are paying a cut. They were no longer allowed to add that as a cost to the customer, and so it had to be obviously artificially built in a non-transparent way. So with merchants being incentivized, and that's the key word here, incentivized to adopt Lightning as a way of keeping more of the revenue, rather than having these costs due to middlemen, card processing companies. They can keep more of that, and that's a good thing, right? The fiat culture that we despise is this culture of middlemen rent seeking, and I think the credit card companies at this point are certainly middlemen, and they're abusing that position and taking too much of a cut, and Lightning is gonna crush them. And I mean, you guys have all heard Jack Mallers, like, he's coming.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, the other piece to this that we should add, right, is that between Visa and MasterCard, they pretty much both own the entire the entire payment network space. Visa is known to have approximately, give or take, 60% of the payment networks. MasterCard has, give or take, approximately 40%. And that tiny little percentage in between is shared by Global Payments. What are they called? Not Western Union, sorry, Discover, American Express, all these companies. And you say to yourself, well, wait a second, American Express takes in billions. This is exactly the point. Okay. But you see, when it comes to MasterCard and Visa, what people don't realize is MasterCard and Visa, they don't issue any debt. So MasterCard and Visa are a different type of beast. They don't issue any debt. All they do is provide branding. Okay. And the people, the institutions that are taking on the risk for providing the credit are the banks. So MasterCard and Visa have a very, unfortunately, they've got a pretty, they run a pretty tight ship, and they know that Bitcoin and Lightning is a threat. And that is why Visa is a 20% owner of Square. Okay, so anybody who thinks that these companies are just going to give up their moat, you got another thing coming. Okay, they are not going to give up their moat. That is a massive moat, and it's exactly what you said, Walton. Like it's like an old boys club, and they're not giving that up. So what are they going to do? They're going to join the race, and they're going to participate. And I think that that's, believe it or not, I think that that's great for Bitcoin, and I think that that's great for Lightning. Anyways, any final thoughts before we dive into the Hopium?
I think you're referencing that Bitcoin is inadvertently forcing markets to be true, not just because of the concept of a harder money and responsibility that goes along with that, rather than the lack of responsibility when you can print to patch up the fuck ups.
Hopium. The Hopium segment is brought to you by Crypto Cloaks. Check them out, cryptocloaks.com, for all your 3D printed needs. I've got this is the cold power. That's right. If you've got a cold card and you want a cool little case for your cold power, here you go. Also, they've got amazing things like, that's right, the Honey Badger. You can use it for storage. I store my FUD dice in here. Boom. I got 2 sets of FUD dice. I'm missing the black ones. I'd love to have all 3. Anyways, check them out, cryptocloaks.com. All right, guys, we're diving into the Hopium segment. This is the segment where, we try to make ourselves feel good about what's going on in Bitcoin, because let's face it, at the end of the day, we all love the Hopium, right? We pretend that we don't want to hear it, but a little part of us wants to hear some Hopium. Okay, here we go. This is a great tweet by Jason Mayer. I'm old enough to remember my brother-in-law bravely claiming that soon any serious company will have a website on the internet. We're kind of at that point again, but with Bitcoin. So exciting. All right. Before we dive into the article that we're going to look at, I think that this is a very important point. Walton, you're a millennial, right? You're 10 years younger than me. I'm a Gen Xer. So we both got to see different aspects of how the internet came to be. Now, in my case, it was a whole lot of disappointment, okay? Because everything at the beginning was incredibly difficult. I think that anybody who's listening to this that ever had to configure a 56K modem or something like that will completely understand.
See, I have that sound like burned into my skull.
Yes.
Like, I can't. I'm not going to imitate it, but no. Play that sound.
Play that sound. No, we're not playing that sound.
No, we're not playing the sound. Okay, but dude, I kind of have a weird like fondness for that sound, even though it's a horrible set of noises put together. That dial-up tone.
And not only that, but I think that people fail to appreciate, if somebody was using the phone, you could not connect to the internet. This is like people don't realize. And believe me, back then, if you would have told people that you're going to be streaming
video today, complaining that their Wi-Fi is down and they can't watch some fucking YouTube, back in the day, they wouldn't have been able to text their friend, because there wasn't a mobile phone, but they wouldn't have been able to, I don't know, do online messenger to a friend because their parents are on the phone. Kids these days.
Yeah, you know what? It's the most ridiculous stuff. And again, if you would have told me back then that everybody's going to be streaming movies, okay, not only that, but that I would literally have a computer in my pocket, okay, that is more powerful than my desktop, I would have told you that you were just completely full of shit. I would have been like, nah, you're not using this tech. You don't realize this isn't getting any better. And keep in mind, right? From, coming from Gen X, we had all these remote control cars. You'd watch these commercials where these kids were having so much fun and, oh, this is amazing. And then you would get this stupid toy and it sucked. Okay. It had 4D batteries. It had in most cases, a wire that was 20 feet long. You were tethered to the remote control. All of this was a terrible user experience. Now, all of this coming back to Bitcoin.
Almost, Phil, it's almost as if the cost of doing advertising on the television meant that they had to, build their products out of plastic crap.
You know what? This is the thing though, right? Back then, this was the peak, right? This was the peak. And we were it was the peak technology, 80s and early 90s. It was oh my gosh, we're doing everything now. CDs are coming out. This is revolutionizing everything. Look, to bring this all back to Bitcoin, we are there now. This is the base layer. These are the rails. I still remember setting up my first Lightning node, which was the Raspberry Bolt. Okay. That was extremely difficult for me. I had to go in YouTube how to put together scripts and then how to run these scripts.
Right, doing command line stuff with real money is pretty scary.
Exactly. And now you don't even have to do that anymore. Now you could just go and use an app like Etcher and just go burn the image onto the little memory stick, power it up, and then follow a couple of prompts, and then you wait. Anyways, I think that we are definitely on the right track. It definitely seems like the internet and, a good old saying in Bitcoin, this is why Bitcoin is the internet of money. And people just don't see it yet. And I know that feeling because I did not see the internet yet when I was young enough, and it made no sense to me. So, moving on to a little more hopium. This is a bit of a different type of hopium, kind of like a FUD hopium. Here we go. Let's take a look. There was an article from Bloomberg. That came out today. Let's just expand the window a little bit here so everybody can read besides me. So here we go. Bitcoin's laser-eyed king is blind to $1 billion loss. Ooh, that's some good framing. That's gonna send some people. That's definitely gonna make some people stress. So here we go. MicroStrategy is delaying the inevitable on its cryptocurrency bet. No, it's not a cryptocurrency bet. It's not a shitcoin bet. It's just a Bitcoin bet. Anyways, with some hair-raising justifications. The results of this dodgy experiment have been scary, all the more so because of leader Michael Saylor's willful blindness to the consequences. The company's latest billion-dollar quarterly loss, equivalent to about 2 years of revenue, was almost entirely due to a slump in the value of its Bitcoin stash. Given rising interest rates have proven crypto is anything but a hedge, one might have expected MicroStrategy to cut its losses and stick to software. After all, even Tesla has dumped the bulk of its Bitcoin pile, prioritizing cash in an environment of war and pricier goods. I like how they build that narrative. Tesla didn't sell that because of this. You think Elon gives a shit?
Apparently Tesla was going to have negative quarterly earnings if they didn't sell Bitcoin. Yeah,
of course, man. Come on.
Right?
Tesla's just, honestly, Tesla's just run by the government. They just don't know it yet. Elon is just the best government grifter that there is. That's my personal opinion. Okay, it's not a fact. Anyways, so here we go. MicroStrategy's response to all these pressures, including a surge in short seller interest, has been to stick to its Bitcoin buying bet and create two leadership roles. Saylor, the zealous supporter of crypto's digital gold ideology, I just hate it when they word things like that, was named executive chairman, while Fong Li was appointed chief executive officer. Okay, and here we go. They show us a nice little chart. This is part of the FUD, right? We need to make you rethink what's happening so we can see, again, cherry picking timelines, right? December 2021 to the present day. Yes, indeed.
When you see it from like mid 2021 when he actually had bought and then announced the buy of the Bitcoin.
I mean, look, don't get me wrong. He's definitely down at this point. Okay, he's definitely down on his Bitcoin at this point, but they are 100% being hyperbolic about it. And they're obviously trying to frame him as somewhat of a loose cannon and, possibly not.
Can we go back to that chart just briefly?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think, what do we compare it against here? So we're comparing
gold
it against Bitcoin, gold.
MicroStrategy share
so gold
price.
Gold doesn't do anything forever, so we've known that for a long time. Shout out, no, not that guy, but fuck that guy, because, gold's a shitcoin.
And the Bloomberg Commodity Index.
It is interesting to see that it does kind of just underperform Bitcoin in general. Like, you can just, like, at least from that date, like, just buy Bitcoin.
But again, they're cherry picking a timeline, man. Like, it's not even.
The question is, do you think that Michael Saylor, the CEO of former CEO of MicroStrategy, still has his laser eyes on, or has a micro penis? Shout out Chairforce.
He still has his laser eyes on, but he may have a micro penis. I'm just, I'm just trying to be fair
here. So supposedly
he's
now becoming the chairman. Do we need to get Pierre Richard to give him a call?
We might need Pierre to give him a call. We might need Pierre actually to hold a meeting to talk about this business of chairs and how they're just not needed. Okay. Moving on. So here we go. Okay. Lee also paid lip service to the company's faith in the long-term store of value of crypto. No, it's not crypto. It's the long-term store value of Bitcoin. The firm insisted that selling wasn't an option, preferring to pledge more of its stash as collateral to satisfy lenders. The strategy, therefore, remains the same. Even scarier were the justifications as to why. The increased volatility of MicroStrategy's stock price since diving into Bitcoin means it has also badly underperformed all of the above. Oh, in an 8-month timeline. How do we fix this? We're gonna talk about this in a second. To defend this as good for the firm's balance sheet or its shareholders is truly Panglossian. I personally can't even pronounce that word, and I'm pretty sure that most of the people listening.
I'm pretty well educated, and I've never seen that word in my entire life. Like,
so
who are these like midwits trying to pretend to be clever that like want to make you look up a word just so that they appear clever? What is this fiat nonsense? Like,
dude, this is exactly what I did.
Fucking
this is exactly
media.
Dude, this is exactly what I did. I had to do it because you know what? When they start to use words like this, I know that they have no story. Okay, so they have to pull these kind of words to just remind you, hey, listen, I'm very well educated and I've got these creds. So respect. All right. Panglossian. Characterized by or given to extreme optimism, especially in the face of unrelieved hardship or adversity. Well, there you go. We all learned something about a term that nobody ever uses. Anyways, Saylor said buying Bitcoin had made MicroStrategy a more interesting company, one that attracts attention and attracts capital. The more the C-suite analysts, journalists, and investors argue over his strategy, the less he needed to publicize it. I can't disagree on that. All right, wrapping this article up. Saylor's hope is that the kingdom of the Bitcoin blind, the laser-eyed man, is king. But right now, it's MicroStrategy that doesn't seem to see things clearly. Okay. Let's unravel this a little bit because it's honestly, to me, it's a bunch of nonsense. So look, having worked for a Fortune 500 company, a company that is traded on the stock market, has been traded on the stock market for well over, I'm pretty sure 30 years at this point, I can tell you this, having sat in many of the meetings, many of the quarterly meetings, many companies today, okay, not just today, but even going back 20 years, they constantly chase quarterly results, okay? And the analysts, their job is to essentially provide a narrative around what these quarterly results may or may not look like. So you have to remember that if he's doing something completely different than what all of Wall Street is doing and what the analysts expect, that's bad. That's bad business. But it's not, okay? It's not bad business because, and again, this is going to be funny that we're going to quote somebody who absolutely hates Bitcoin, but Warren Buffett, okay, and Berkshire Hathaway in particular, when they buy companies, they don't actually, and Warren Buffett has said this, he goes, I don't really care about the quarterly results. I care about the long-term vision. Why? Because he's a value investor. So look, he may not understand Bitcoin, but he understands buying companies at discounted prices. So to go back to MicroStrategy, the point I'm making is that Michael Saylor believes that he has a long-term vision for MicroStrategy, and he is playing that vision out. But you see, that vision goes against what Wall Street and the Wall Street machine want. So they're going to paint him as a lunatic. They're going to paint him as somebody who has no idea what they're doing, which, don't get me wrong, the Bitcoin maximalists have been painted this way since the beginning. And we always turn up positive in the end, because when you've done the research and you understand the qualities of Bitcoin, the censorship resistance, the finite supply, the decentralization, the fact that there's no central head that you can cut off, once you realize these qualities, you realize, okay, this is the real deal, and I need to learn more about this, and I need to accumulate this. Anyways, Walton, what are your thoughts on my Hopium?
They just, the focus is on the extremes, and so you've got already cherry picking with regards to I guess tails of a distribution, in terms of they're not the normal stories that they're reporting. They don't and they have an agenda, right? The incentives of the mainstream media, to some degree, are the behest of the owners, right? Like they're Washington Post is owned by Bezos. Basically, like he has a mouthpiece, right? To some degree, these media organizations are to some degree coordinated mouthpieces intended to try and coordinate messaging and cultivate pushes towards different cultures from a media organization. Like these things are tools, and I think many people underestimate the extent at which they're getting manipulated by the mainstream media, not just with regards to what's being said. So there's two ways that people are getting played by these mainstream media organizations. The first is that they are mouthpieces of powerful people who are trying to push a particular message or agenda in a way to cultivate the response they want in society. But two, there is also an extreme focus on choosing stories that are exceptions, and so people have a disproportionate view of how things really are, and that's part of the power that the mainstream media exert with then pushing these kind of culture vectors, essentially. Does that make sense? So if you kind of confuse the populace to some degree about the extent at which something's happening, the extent at which things are certain things are problems, you can then push a certain message to cause a certain political change that you want. And I think that's happening significantly across Western countries. And there's a lot of reasonably smart people working in typically professional type jobs. They're doing okay in the system, and they're oblivious to kind of the extent at which this is happening, or maybe they don't care.
That concludes the Hopium segment. We are gonna dive right into the Shitcoin Corner. What do you got for us today, Walton? I saw you putting in some notes there that looked like some really interesting stuff.
Yes, I've got a couple of things for you. I guess obviously the main story I think this week over in the corner where the left curvers play is this tornado.cash being sanctioned by the United States government. Let me just share my screen, show you some of the stories in and around this story. We have a tweet that says, "Read this thread or go to jail for 30 years." Sorry, not kidding. This doesn't apply to you, by the way, if you're a Bitcoiner. It's only if you're a shitcoiner that you fuck up like this. Anyway, so let's have a look here. Tornado.cash added to U.S. sanctions list. $437 million of shitcoins blocked. What is OFAC? What are sanctions, and what does this mean for DeFi? Now, I'm not going to read this thread, but the summary is that DeFi is not decentralized. DeFi stands for degenerate finance, not decentralized finance. DeFi, degenerate finance. So these things are built on top of infrastructure that is not decentralized. And so what happens when a government doesn't like something that's being used is that the providers of that infrastructure can actually be sanctioned and can actually kind of make a difference. And so this is why, once again, I'm going to reiterate, Bitcoin is the only decentralized protocol out there, because of the possibility that plebs can run their own nodes. And I think I'm going to get into the block size war, but like the one of the single biggest things that toxic plebs have done is defend essentially the right for plebs to run their own nodes. Something that's very important. Now, when it comes to this DeFi stuff, a lot of it runs on infrastructure, as I said, that is pretty centralized, and that some of these are major companies that are based in Western jurisdictions, and when the
Amazon
US government decide we don't like you, everything goes wrong. And so let's have a little look here. So Infura and Alchemy now blocking access to Tornado.cash. We mentioned last week Infura is owned by Consensus, which is owned by JP Morgan. So it's TradFi cucked, and this means that they have to follow along with everything. And because there are no plebs running all the infrastructure, there's no redundancy, essentially. Like there is no There is no decentralization. It is degenerate finance. So we have the major infrastructure providers just following along. So this isn't I don't know, retard coin or whatever. Some of these, like, how many are there now, Phil? Like, too many, obviously, is the answer. But like 10,000, 20,000 shitcoins.
18,000 now. I think we're close to 18. I heard the last number was 22. It doesn't matter. It's just 22,000 imitations.
Yeah, well, that's it, right? Anyway, the point is that the second crypto, as in the first shitcoin, should we call it, the first shitcoin, Ethereum, the one that is supposedly more decentralized than all other shitcoins, has just been shown to be insufficiently decentralized.
I mean, we can also
it's
point out
pretty significant.
It is significant, and we could also point out that the majority of the nodes are running on Amazon Web Services. So all of this is centralized. I mean, oftentimes you hear this excuse, oh, well, the data centers, they're all over the world, or they're all over the country, or they're spread out amongst countries. Okay, that's perfectly fine. All those data centers are owned by the same company. It doesn't matter. That's not decentralization. That's not how this works.
Okay, so I want to have a look. Like, I'm not going to read these articles. You can read these articles yourself, but you guys put the story. I want to have a look at some of the comments from some people on Twitter, some analysis, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this. So, what happened next was, and this was, I thought, kind of a cool move, but someone sent funds from Tornado.cash, which is a kind of mixing service. I think it's like the Ethereum version of Whirlpool, something like that. They sent funds that were sanctioned funds. They sent it to lots of well-known Ethereum addresses. So they sent it to, Vitalik, my balls. They sent it to the Ethereum Foundation. They sent it to Shitcoiner with Monkey Face 1, Shitcoiner with Monkey Face 2. I don't know names. Like, anyway, like the point is that all these addresses got spammed with illicit Ethereum. Now, Ethereum doesn't run a UTXO model like Bitcoin. It runs an account model, and so therefore the account is tainted. It's not it's not just like, oh, that bit of funds is illegal. It's mixed now. So these accounts are now essentially gonna be come after by OFAC in some way, shape, or form. Now, the Ethereum Foundation was one of these people sent this illicit Bitcoin. So in theory, can they move their Ethereum without breaking OFAC rules? I'm not sure. We had this incident where there's not Bitcoin. Shitcoiners. There's Ethereum being illicit Ethereum being sent out to all these addresses, and it also gets sent out to, I believe, a bunch of like DeFi protocols, like dexes, all this sort of thing, and tainting all of these things, and then of course maybe those companies then have to follow rules, etc. And so various things gets people are getting locked out, blocked out, all this sort of thing from their shitcoins. And we see a tweet here from Gigi congratulating these retards on building a more convoluted, more inefficient, more expensive, and more dishonest PayPal. And a comment here we see decentralized compliance. Shit, that's going to be the next buzzword, isn't it? Like, I think we've heard of this DAO, right? The unorganized,
decentralized autonomous organization.
I know what they are, but they're not decentralized. They're not autonomous, and they're not organized at all. But anyway, like, I think this is going to be a new buzzword in the shitcoin space. Maybe, I don't, like, again, these things are stupid, but like around kind of the concept of DAO and other associated shitcoinery, this term decentralized compliance, I think it's going to be the next buzzword there. And then this story started getting a little bit darker, where it wasn't just funds getting frozen, but now software developers being arrested. I want to show you one final tweet from my friend Brian Trolls. Here we have Shinobi's take on this arrest. Now, we're going to read it. If the arrest in the Netherlands is purely based on deriving income from tornado use, that precedent being adopted by other jurisdictions has widespread implications for-profit coin join services that could destroy one of the only profitable business models in this space. I think this is a little bit like Silk Road, in that we have a software developer going to jail for the crimes of not going to jail, sorry, being arrested for the crimes of essentially associates, but not necessarily having the responsibility for the actions that have been deemed sanctionable by OFAC. What's your take on this, Phil?
Yeah. So okay. So we're gonna back up a bit. I just want to set the precedence, right? So there are services like CoinJoin, like Samurai, and then there are services like Tornado.cash. Tornado is a mixing service. So it is we'll call it a centralized service, okay, that takes your funds and actively mixes them. Whereas something like Samurai,
so I misspoke before when I said
no, it's okay though, but it's just to clarify.
Yeah, sorry.
So, something like Samurai or CoinJoin is a collaborative spend. So all you're doing is that everybody is joining their UTXOs together. Okay, so it's a little bit different than that centralized mixing service. That being said, okay.
But once again, the naming is an affinity scam, right? A tornado is similar to a whirlpool. So
yeah, of course.
Bitcoin stuff's getting.
The shitcoiners don't know how to meme. They don't know how to meme. They don't know how to come up with their own stuff. Okay, like this is why in the Ethereum world, instead of BIPs, they have EIPs. Because they couldn't even think of their own improvement protocol or program or whatever the hell. Anyways, but my point is this, right? So I could be wrong, but the type of precedence that this sets, that's like essentially if you worked for a gun manufacturer and somebody went out and killed somebody using that gun, all of a sudden you're somehow responsible for this. Like that's pretty much what it is. Like essentially what this type of behavior does is it absolves personal responsibility. And if we zoom out and we take a look, right, at what has happened. Yeah, so to your point about what's going on with these services and the narratives, okay? We have to be very careful. We have to be very careful because it becomes a slippery slope. We cannot have devs getting arrested, okay, because they worked on some code that ends up getting used in something, in something like this. And I want to go back to something that you said about the naming convention, right? The tornado.cash. I mean, that is just, it's what you said. It's an affinity scam. They're just trying to make you feel as though you can trust this. But again, you're using a centralized service. So it's just complete nonsense. And it really makes no sense to me in the end. I don't really see, I don't really see a point in using any of these things. Okay, we've already said this. Like Bitcoin's a transparent ledger. It's not anonymous, it's pseudonymous. So why would anyone think that once we introduce centralization, okay, once the shitcoiners introduce centralization and use all of these services which are created by corporations, why would you think for a second that somehow you're anonymous? You're not. You're not anonymous in any way. Anyways.
I think when it comes to decentralization, like if people think of it as a little bit of a status, I think of centralization or decentralization, or rather than a factor making, like a particular factor making something decentralized or centralized, I think more about how the system of incentives drive future behavior, and how the changes change that set of incentives. And so I see it as like a vector where essentially if for example you go, okay, we're going to make block size slightly bigger, you are you're disincentivizing the average person from being able to run a node, because they're going to need more expensive hardware, because they're going to have a larger blockchain. You really need to look at how, like, and again, these shitcoiners, they're so short-sighted. They're not looking at like the health of the system. They're not looking at, if we do this, could it enable someone to then do something in 20 years time that's gonna be bad. They're thinking, is this change a good hype story? Is it gonna pump what I'm holding or not holding, because they've all got them on exchanges, we talked about that last week, in the short term? Is that just going to get pumped? That's all they care about. When it comes to shitcoiners, the only news they want is hopium. They don't actually want analysis, because then it would really be quite obvious how bad some of the technology out there is.
The quote unquote crypto world is characterized by essentially the same behavior that our current fiat system is characterized by, which is the lack of personal responsibility. Okay? Everything, all the personal responsibility is offset to the third party. Okay? And the third party is never actually responsible for anything. Like, it's such a strange thing. So we don't want
I didn't like that, right? Just like the what did I call it? The hack Swan event, right? Swan didn't get hacked, but they're some third party.
Oh yeah, their email provider or
whatever it is.
The
point is, they use a third party to outsource some particular part of the service that they're offering. And whilst they aren't directly responsible, like, a company is, I believe, like, maybe not legally responsible, but ethically responsible to their customers with regards to all fuck ups, because their suppliers are their suppliers and their customers are their customers. And if you're a customer, you shouldn't really be aware of suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
It should be a kind of something smooth coming from the company, like, and when it comes to fuck ups, and especially when it comes to data fuck ups, what do the companies do? They go, oh yeah, it was those guys, every single time. Like, what do you want to do? Choose companies that respect your data and think and take responsibility for parts of their service, even if they're not providing them directly.
But see that, and this is the thing, right? We've all been trained that, hey, guess what? Just check this box. We're gonna keep your data secure, and every single one of us just checks the box so that they can install the software. Check the box so that I can use the service. Check the box so I can log into the website. Nobody is actually reading any of this, and believe me, these companies know that nobody is reading this. No one is paying attention. Nobody has any personal responsibility. The insurance industry is probably one of the biggest scams that I've seen in humanity besides our shitty money. Okay. And the reason why I say that, and I do apologize to people who do insurance for a living. I understand it, that unfortunately, because people can't be held accountable personally,
regulation,
and personal responsibility is eroding, right? That, hey, guess what? You know what? We all need insurance. But the reality is that the majority of us pay for insurance for absolutely nothing. Okay. And then when you go and something actually happens and you have to make a claim, what do? Sure, they begrudgingly cut you a check, but then they raise your insurance premium. It's like, what the hell was I just paying for? So anyways, this all goes back to this culture of offsetting the responsibility. And this is exactly where we are with this. And you know what? I mean, unfortunately, to me anyways, this is another step in saying, look, you can't police yourself. You can't be personally responsible. So we need to do this for you. And we need to tell you what's right, what's wrong, what you can use, what you can't. And you know what? The government is not any more competent than any individual person. They can be just as stupid as any individual person. They could be just as ignorant as any individual person. It might even be worse, because it's a group of people which are acting as an entity. anyways,
And
these
so the
these are
lack
my
of
thoughts on
individual
this.
responsibility, the lack of individual responsibility means that they don't have to be accountable.
Exactly right. Exactly right. All right. Anything else on the in the Shitcoin Corner?
What's the most important thing to say about shitcoins? Yeah, fuck shitcoins.
Very good. Very good, Walton. Very good. All right, guys. That was our show for today. If you liked it, like, subscribe, check us out on plebunderground.com. Don't forget to look in Twitter Spaces for the Bitcoin Council of Autism. That's right. They hold awesome spaces. Check them out. Follow Walton on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at CoinIcarus. Walton, what's your Twitter handle?
AEHW1.
Yeah, see, I kind of figured I couldn't pronounce that one. So don't forget to follow Walton. We're going to put both of our contact details in the show notes. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll catch you all next time.